the one thing the pharmaceutical industry would never want anyone to hear. I don't trust them.
I see fungi as the remediators of our planet. And I think about the psychedelic mushrooms kind of as remediators for our spirit, in a way.
Psilocybin mushrooms, they're not for everyone.
And to me, psilocybin is the fear killer. It was like this complete freeing experience.
There's no research on polypharmacy. There's nothing that says these combinations have been clinically studied and found to be useful for this condition. They're not doing science, they're doing art. And doctors are not artists.
O uso de psicodélicos ainda é um grande tabu, principalmente no Ocidente. A pesquisa atrelada aos psicodélicos usados para fins medicinais não é uma novidade. Na verdade, ela começou nos anos 50 e foi interrompida nos anos 60, quando o presidente Richard Nixon chegou na Casa Branca e declarou guerra às drogas. Diga-se de passagem, uma guerra absolutamente falida e desastrosa. A gente fala de psicodélicos criados em laboratório, como ketamina, como MDMA, LSD. Mas eu vim até o Colorado mais interessado em outro tipo de psicodélico, principalmente os cogumelos alucinógenos. Colorado, hoje, é referência mundial nesse assunto. E talvez por isso eu esteja tão feliz agora. Um cara chamado Zach Hedstrom dedicou a vida inteira ao consumo e ao estudo dessas substâncias, desses cogumelos. Eu estou indo para Boulder, estou aqui pertinho, para conversar com ele. Zach? How are you?
Welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome.
And here is where the magic happens.
Yes, this is where the
And
magic
here
happens.
is where the mushroom happens.
This is, yeah, magic of the mushroom. So they're packing up sawdust right now. But the fungus which produces the mushrooms, it actually eats the sawdust. We sterilize it, and then we inoculate it with kind of a fungal seed. It's not exactly a seed, but it's like a culture, almost like a sourdough starter, you know? So, and the cool thing about this industry in general, and specifically the way that we grow the mushrooms, is all of the sawdust comes from a local wood shop, and they're just throwing all of that stuff away. So we actually go there, bring the truck, load up the truck with the sawdust, and then grow and bring it here and produce mushrooms off of it. And then the end product is a compost, which all goes to local farms for soil building.
This is a really silly question, but I'm gonna ask anyway. You guys have this style, at least by looking at you guys, that's somewhat similar. Is it more Colorado or is it more the mushroom
It's a
industry?
job requirement. We're all, it's a requirement. We have to have long hair, black sunglasses, otherwise you don't get to work here.
So if I want a job, I need another couple of years.
Yeah, you need at least 1 to 2 years before I would consider hiring you.
Or some extensions.
Yeah.
Remember that I know nothing about this world. I'm fascinated by it, but I need to learn like the very first steps.
Yeah.
What is a mushroom?
Yeah. Well, okay, that's a great question, and not everybody really understands. So a mushroom is a fruit. Okay, so the mushroom is a fruit of a larger organism which looks more like a mold.
Okay.
And that organism is called mycelium. You can think about the mycelium as the apple tree, and then the mushroom is like the apple. And so you can have many different varieties of apples. They're still apple trees, you know what I mean? So for example, this one is gonna produce a pink mushroom. This one is gonna produce a white mushroom.
How abundant is mycelium? When I walk into my backyard, when I walk out in this forest, where is mycelium?
Mycelium is everywhere. Mycelium is responsible for so many unseen jobs in nature. So for example, when you walk into a forest and you have, thousands of trees, all of those trees are connected underground by a network of mycelium. The mycelium actually takes nutrients from bigger trees and takes it to the baby trees. So it's almost like the mother of the forest.
O uso de cogumelos alucinógenos para fins medicinais é cada vez mais comum. Agora, aqui no Colorado, uma voz é super conhecida e super respeitada. Um cara chamado Alan Floyd. Eu vim falar com ele. Your life was going very well until you had a shift. Tell me about that moment. Tell me about what happened.
I woke up one day and I was like, wow, I'm in some of the worst pain I've ever been in my life, and it's right there. Went to the doctors, and it literally went from, this guy, he's probably overdoing his pain thing, to the moment they got the images from the MRI, oh my God, you're riddled with spinal tumors. Today's your last day of work. And I thought, what?
What went through your mind at that point? What is that like?
That's really hard to describe. That alone was earth-shaking, So that part was bad enough. Then, so by July 2006, I was seeing the specialists, and they told me, well, here's the situation. We can keep you alive another 2 years. You're probably gonna die in 25 months. We're basically saying that August 2008, you're gone. That's the best case scenario. And that's what really got me. At that point, I developed post-traumatic stress disorder, end-of-life anxiety, and I was in the blackest depression, suicidal. The doctors recognized what was happening, thank goodness, and they said, okay, there is a bill, a federal bill in the United States that was passed in 2016. It's called the Right to Try Bill. That bill allows people that have definitively been diagnosed with a terminal illness to use LSD, MDMA, which is ecstasy, and or psilocybin. And they said, why don't we try psilocybin with you?
How did the Sacred Tribe come about?
So when I graduated from rabbi school, I was looking for a Kabbalistic community to work with. And I was like, you know what, we're gonna make it up, because this is what I want to be doing. I want to be working with people in that heart open space. I'm not here to tell people, dogma. I'm not here to to bash people over the head with you shoulds. I hardly ever give a you should.
I believe there is an aspect of you that must be brave to be working with experiences that are not fully embraced by society quite yet.
Yeah.
Are you hopeful that things are changing?
The tide has already turned, and certainly the stigma of psychedelics has largely gone away. Not entirely, but largely gone away. There have been laws protecting, psychedelic use in religious spaces, since Nixon, since the Controlled Substances Act was passed, which essentially, granted religious freedom to do things as long as there was no outward harm. There's a structure that the DEA offers for religious exemptions at the federal level. That structure exists.
$250 milligrams. This happens to be a Nepalese variety.
Like, what was the first moment in which you looked around, you're like, wait a second, this is working?
definitively occurred 2 weeks in with regard to not having the absolute terror nightmares at 3:15 every morning, you know. And then as time went on, let's say 6 months went by of me regularly microdosing, I started to realize, you know what? The pain is still there. This medication does not treat pain. It's not like an opioid. But what it does is it radically changes your attitude and your mindset about the pain you're in. What happens when you use psychedelics, I think the experts all agree on this, is for some reason, when you use psychedelics, your blood goes to areas of your brain that are like side roads. It retrains your brain that everything's kind of okay, and it's not taking that exact same path all the time, which is like, oh my God, I'm hurting. That's what I've discovered. And it somehow, at least with me, it made my brain say, you know what? I can definitely feel that my mood is lifted 1,000%. I'm not just black depression during the day, oh my God, just let me die, let's get it over with. That all went away within 6 months. It continues to be that case to this day. Many people who regularly macrodose would tell you is they do it to develop compassion, to see that they are a part of something that's far, far bigger than anything they ever imagined. I don't know of any other substance aside from hallucinogens that can do that to people and really reset their minds to this is reality and it's not so bad.
Todo ano é publicada uma pesquisa que determina o melhor estilo de vida e o lugar mais feliz dos Estados Unidos. Para minha sorte, cá estou eu, no número 1. Bem-vindo a Boulder. Boulder entrou no mapa, ficou conhecida nos anos 60 e 70 como um reduto de hippies, numa época em que essa comunidade paz e amor estava procurando um lugar com paisagens espetaculares, com uma natureza impressionante, ou seja, aqui. Mais ou menos 100 mil pessoas vivem em Boulder. Dessas 100 mil pessoas, mais de 30 mil são universitários. E algumas estão com pressa. Feliz. When you were born, the idea of psychedelics used for medicinal purposes, it was still taboo.
Incredibly taboo.
What has changed?
I think over the course of the past 20 years is really when people have started to kind of gain more awareness and learn more about the potential benefits of psychedelics, especially for mental health purposes.
Yep.
Again, coming out of universities like Johns Hopkins here in the US,
Yep.
Imperial College in London. But I think with our campaign in Denver, we really catalyzed more of a national grassroots movement.
You have to gather a certain number of signatures
Yep.
in order to reach your goal, to sort of earn a voice in this battle. What do you say to these people in the streets? What's your approach like?
First of all, I say, hey, are you registered to vote in Colorado? And they say, yes. Well, today I'm out here collecting signatures for the Natural Medicine Health Act of 2022, which is going to create an access system to natural medicines like psilocybin mushrooms so that folks like veterans with PTSD can get the treatment they deserve and find the relief they need.
Go ahead and cross out Colorado, just with one line, and make sure to use whichever address where you're registered to vote.
Sorry.
No worries.
Well, I struggled with major depression for a long time. My whole life, I wanted to be a career Army officer and serve my country, and I didn't graduate from West Point because I was diagnosed with service-connected major depression there. And so for me, that was, you know, one could say an existential crisis in a sense, because I was, you know, focused so long on this singular objective that really crumbled through my fingertips. And so I was facing a loss of a sense of self and identity and purpose, and had struggled for a number of years, you know, dabbled into self-help, seeing therapists. I had been on medication, but it wasn't until one experience with psilocybin. Right here in Denver with a group of friends, where we were just out in a park in the evening together and looked up at the sky, and I don't know if the clouds actually parted, but it felt like the clouds parted. And the intuition or the sense that I got was that, Kevin, you know, you no longer have to be a victim to your diagnosis. You can make a new choice, and you can start making these steps and lifestyle changes every single day to start to get better.
If you think about how we lived a century ago, no anesthesia, no antibiotics. Why haven't we been able to make nearly as much progress when it comes to mental health?
You're walking down the street. You see someone on crutches or a cane who's having a difficult time getting into the store. Generally speaking, most people in most cultures, can I help you? Can I open the door for you?
Yeah.
What do people do when they see a schizophrenic talking to themselves at that same store, right in front of the same place that's just blabbering on and incomprehensible, and it's noticeable that they have a mental illness? Most people that I have seen turn around and go the other way because of that stigma. It's okay to be physically sick. It's not okay, at least in Western cultures, to be mentally ill.
I have quite a bit of trauma in my history, including sexual assault. And I had done a lot of work through neurolinguistic programming, timeline therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. I'd done a lot to be able to manage it. But when I did the mushrooms during that ceremony, a different layer came up. And it was, that particular journey wasn't the easiest, but on the other side of it, I woke up the next morning and I took a deep breath, and I didn't realize up until that moment that I hadn't been able to properly breathe.
Yeah.
It was like this complete freeing experience. And allowed me to face a whole different demon. And to me, psilocybin is the fear killer. It's even been called that. So when that ego, that little nasty, critical, asshole, judgmental voice inside of your head quiets down a little bit, it's amazing the insights that you can have and what you can learn about yourself and the cause of the real problem.
So in here, this is our fruiting tent. So we've created a microclimate which is extremely humid. And inside of here, yeah, this is where the mushrooms can grow.
Wow.
This is a black pearl mushroom. Fully colonized. You can see you don't even see any of the sawdust anymore. So this is called the pinning stage.
Can I smell it?
Yes.
Almost like a fermented scent.
Right.
A little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of a fermented scent. Well, it's a bit like fermentation, just, you know, more moldy. This block is just 1 day past the other block. This is what they're looking like when they're ready to harvest. So the caps really open up very, very fast. They get very large. So we can harvest these mushrooms.
Really?
Yeah.
Right now?
Yes,
Let's
we
do
need
it.
to. We can't wait any longer because if we let them go past prime, they're not really good. This is where the block ends and this is where the mushroom begins. So what we want to do is just take the cluster and just pluck it off.
Oh,
just like that. There we go. So that's kind of our final cluster of mushrooms right there. Bouquet of mushrooms.
No,
they're happy.
All right.
Beautiful.
All right.
Nice. Have you ever plucked a mushroom before?
No.
All right.
Not at all.
Congrats.
Happy Valentine's Day.
You've been initiated.
Funnily enough, I came back to God through science and not through religion per se. I didn't come back to God through structure and dogma and rule following. For years, everybody has thought that like religion is a thing, as a structure itself that brings people together, and it really isn't. Actually, largely, it creates a you versus them.
Yes.
Whether it's a you or a you or a you, it still creates a you versus them. And I think science has actually come around to the opposite conclusion. And even growing up in like a small religious community, I don't know that I ever had like a somatic, heartfelt experience of God. I'm not sure that most people have in that way. But the very first time I had mushrooms, I was in an apartment here in Denver with a good friend of mine. We were laying in bed, and it's like I could just see and feel. I could feel all of it, and it changed everything. I went back to my rabbi school. I went to a few conferences and started asking people, "Have you ever had something like this?" And like, "No." And I'm like, "Let's do it." And then a few months later, I got into the Jewish spiritual side of psychedelics with mushrooms.
Em Denver, recentemente, o uso dos cogumelos alucinógenos foi descriminalizado. Ou seja, se você for pego com uma quantidade pequena dessa substância, você não vai preso. Agora, vender é crime no país inteiro, e exatamente por isso, quem decide dedicar a vida a essa atividade geralmente vive na beira da clandestinidade. Eu vim falar com uma dessas pessoas e, por motivos óbvios, eu não posso revelar a identidade dela.
It's full of the psilocin and psilocybin and other components there. You can see how blue it is.
Yep.
They're astonishingly much more potent. They're also much more robust and alive. One of our members working with us, she took a half a gram the other day with me during a trial test. She had an astral projection experience. She was out of her body in a way that doesn't happen with less than 4 or 5 grams for her.
Oh, wow. How is it for you to know in your heart what you're doing, but have to deal with the challenging aspects of criticism?
I think the criticisms are not valid because doctors don't take cancer medicine before they treat cancer.
Yep.
But right now we've got this condition in the world called polypharmacy. And doctors and prescribers add more and more prescriptions and pills because we're addicted to pills and being paid by pharma. The most important part of this process is making sure they're all the same size per tray, so they can actually dry correctly in the machine. When you start, there's no research on polypharmacy. There's nothing that says these combinations have been clinically studied and been found to be useful for this condition. So at that point, they're not doing science, they're doing art. And doctors are not artists. Our supporter who provided these for us, she struck a deal to get the pharmaceutical quality software in the production level machines for us. So we got these machines go for $11,000 a piece. That gives me the confidence that from any level at any court, there's no way to convict us. I've got the right to try myself.
Yeah, of course.
But from a group perspective, we have much more expertise and much more experience and much more ethical approaches to doing this because of this is our own truth. This is what we live with on a daily basis. I am not afraid of the outside folks judging this. They just don't know.
How are you? Rocky, right?
Yes.
Question. I love Pilsners, light beers. What would you recommend?
I would recommend the International Waters Pilsner. That one's going to be a little bit more light and crisp.
But it's
and
local.
crisp. Yeah. Oh, yep. Right here.
Everything here?
Yeah.
Amazing. I'll take that.
Sure.
Please. Thank you. Nenhuma outra cidade nos Estados Unidos tem tantas cervejarias artesanais quanto Denver. É boa. Um dia desse, não tem por que beber lá dentro, né? Aqui você vai encontrar escolas incríveis, universidades incríveis. 7 em 10 habitantes têm uma bicicleta. Mais de 35 galerias, mais de 5 museus, uma vida cultural muito rica, ativa. E desde os anos 60, esse lugar atrai pessoas com a cabeça aberta. Pessoas que são anti-preconceitos, que abraçam a liberdade alheia. Talvez por isso os hippies tenham vindo para cá. E talvez por isso também esse seja um lugar que valoriza tanto a espiritualidade, a aceitação de diferentes religiões e também de diferentes possibilidades, experiências, como, por exemplo, os psicodélicos. Mas como eu estou numa cervejaria, por enquanto, eu vou beber cerveja. Amazing. So this is your work of art.
Yep.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
If the mushroom thing doesn't work,
Go beer?
go beer.
All right. Just the simple fact that I can take a waste product from a wood shop and grow such a tasty food off of it, which also has medicinal benefits and will help to benefit the soil afterwards, I mean, that's a really magical thing to me. So I think that really what it is I have a reverence for the mushrooms, and basically that makes me feel like I'm doing some work for them, and then they're doing some work for me as well, and to kind of be a representative for the good things that they can bring to our lives.
So today I believe these are black king mushrooms. The best way is to kind of tear them apart and create bite-sized pieces. We'll make a marinade, and then we can marinate these pieces and then sear them off and get a good color.
Love it.
Mushrooms are actually a great food source. They're one of my favorites if they're correctly prepared. Very similar to like duck or scallops as far as meat goes, or even like a perfect filet mignon. You know, you want to get the right kind of sear, you want to get the right kind of cooking method used in order to really pull out the flavors.
Ready for some mushroom tacos?
Dig in.
All right. Bon appetit.
Bon appetit. Do we cheers with that?
Yeah, why not?
We can.
Yeah, there we go.
Messy and delicious.
That's how a good taco should be.
Man, that's so good. I like a pulled pork.
Wow.
Every time I experience mushrooms, I think that they make me feel my passion again. I'm grateful to them. I am grateful that they communicate with me and they share their stories and their secrets. I'm grateful that they have chosen to thrive here. I'm delighted by them. I think we keep learning new things. I feel really blessed to have gotten to this point, and I feel very cautiously optimistic that we have hit on something that actually could work to help get us out of the mess that we find ourselves in now.
We need to stop demonizing these medications, you know? Number one, they're natural. In my opinion, anything that is natural like this should never, ever, ever have been legislated and made illegal in the United States. This medication isn't for everybody, but the people that it is for, and if they are under a controlled environment, you know, seeing a psychiatrist, which I do, I think that makes all the difference in the world.
I see fungi as the remediators of our planet. I think that they can remediate all kinds of toxins out of our waterways. They can remediate things out of our soils. They can remediate our bodies. And I think about the psychedelic mushrooms kind of as remediators for our spirit, in a way. especially when you look at the ways that they've been used traditionally in indigenous communities. They have been for a purpose of spirituality and spiritual clarity.
Feeling as much of the human emotional spectrum as you can, and getting rid of any guilt or shame or remorse or whatever you may carry around that. If you're going to feel angry, feel it, because that's what helps it to pass. If you're going to feel grief, feel it. Bitter, jealous, creative, loving, curious, joy-filled. And again, this is not anything revolutionary in that way, but for me in Judaism it was.
Yes.
Okay, time to go to the restaurant.
I'll follow you. Get your jazz.
Oh yeah. After you.
Age before beauty.
Yeah, farm to freezer, literally. Just picked and now we're here. All right.
Sounds good.
So now we'll have some. So have you ever gone mushroom foraging before?
Never.
Never.
There's always a first time for everything.
Yeah.
If you don't have a dog, you have Pedro to sniff
That's right.
the richness.
That's why I brought you. I figured you'd be down on the ground. Sniffing. You start singing the mushroom song and then the goggles.
What is
They
the mushroom
initiate.
song?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh,
Depends
come
on the day. Mushrooms, little mushrooms, where will I find you?
So aside from all that, you're a composer as well.
Oh, it's just yeah, a little bit, I guess.
This research has been paused for decades. Where do you think we would be had we kept it going from the 70s till 80s, 90s till now?
The pharmaceutical industry would not be a multi-billion-dollar industry that made a lot of money off of antidepressants and things of that nature, I believe. It would still be a very, very, very big industry, no doubt about it. I think that people would have gravitated more quickly towards these natural medicines and found out for themselves that this is for me or this is not for me.
Historically, and I'm talking thousands of years, psychedelics have been used with extreme reverence and intention and respect by cultures all over the world. Psilocybin mushrooms, they're not for everyone. There can be contraindications. There's still more research that needs to be done in terms of, what are those contraindications.
After my dalliance with the big pharma industry, they're the ones that put me on 450 milligrams of opioids a day. And I don't know if you're familiar with dosages of opioids. Now in the United States, when a patient is dying, the most they can get is 120 milligrams on their last 2 weeks of life, if they are able to calculate that. I was on 450 milligrams. It destroyed me. I went through withdrawal for 3.5 years. And that being said, I don't trust them.
The point of doing this in a religious context, or the point of doing this in a communal context, is that you then have some support for years afterwards if you need it. So that's a little bit about what this evening. And so that's really the gift that I want to offer, is the place to just go feel it all.
Well,
you poor buggers.
thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're gonna start. Everybody going to take your heads back, open your mouth up. You can put your hands on your lower abdomen. Breathe in. Nice and deep. As you take a deep breath in, you'll feel your hands on the bottom of your abdomen lift up and down. That's how you know you've taken a nice deep breath. comfortable for you?
Eu sempre me considerei um cara muito cético, né? Que antes de pensar naquilo que eu estou sentindo, eu meio que analiso os fatos, analiso os acontecimentos, as circunstâncias. Mas hoje eu vejo que esses dois mundos não vivem isolados. E o mais interessante desse meu aprendizado, desse meu contato com essas experiências, com essas substâncias, é que eu me dei conta de que ela depende da minha entrega, né? Quando a gente não se entrega, quando a gente não está presente, as coisas não rolam. Pelo contrário, a gente tensiona. Há certas coisas que só acontecem quando a gente se entrega. Quando a gente entende que a gente não tem sempre controle de absolutamente tudo. Isso é uma ideia ilusória.
I was shocked by how, in a really simple, fast way, you can throw your body into the numbness, feel like your blood pressure is, I felt at least, really low. I tried to get up, I was super dizzy. My head was throbbing it was just all these really weird feelings piled up.
I think so the bad emotions help you through the bad times, I think. So the emotion itself is not necessarily bad, because what would you do without that at a horrible time?
How would you cope?
Yeah, right.
Interesting.
So what's the aftermath? We're looking at it?
We're feeling it.
Okay.
Can you still feel it?
No,
'Cause I can still feel
yeah,
it.
for sure. My hands are still tingling, my extremities, and my lips are doing some weird stuff. But, and I can't stop talking. But, thank you guys.
So when we're mushroom hunting in Colorado, we really follow the water because, this is pretty dry all out here. So we really follow the water to try and locate the best spot for the mushrooms.
It's the difference between wanting to take my life to end just this intense pain to a complete flip side of, you know what, I can still be in this intense pain, but I recognize the beauty of things every day, much, much more than I did in the past. I do not want my wife and children to look back after I've passed away and say, oh my God, he was bedridden and you're just in a terrible black place. I want them to be able to say, you know what, even though he was terminally ill and he had horrible, horrible things occurring with him, he had a great sense of humor. He made things happen. He did what he wanted to do, and I need to learn from that and take on that. That's where I'm coming from.
I found some.
What'd you find, Pedro?
Parole, parole, parole. This one likes Italian music.
It was the song. I told you.
Looks like marshmallows.
Oh, yeah. That's what we're looking for right there.
Holy shit. Eu diria que uma das facetas mais burras, mais estúpidas da humanidade é a nossa capacidade de não aprender com os nossos próprios erros, né? E a gente, nesse momento, está passando por um período em que a gente está bem carente dessa valorização da ciência. Fatores políticos, fatores religiosos, ideológicos, e a gente passa a não acreditar nos fatos, a não acreditar na comunidade científica, na comunidade médica. Eu acho que quando a gente pensa na história dos psicodélicos nos Estados Unidos, isso fica muito claro, que isso foi um erro, que isso foi um equívoco, que a gente podia estar muito mais longe, muito mais avançado do que a gente está. A gente desperdiçou décadas de pesquisas, de estudos válidos, merecedores da nossa atenção, e isso acabou resultando em muita gente morta, muita gente presa, muitas vidas destruídas.
thankfully, the narrative is changing. And some folks that I know who actually work in Washington, D.C. as lobbyists, they're actively working on legislation, working with elected officials right now. I think in the next 5 years, maybe even sooner, we could see natural medicines like psilocybin being decriminalized.
Amazing. Se eu levo comigo uma lição, é que a gente não sabe nada ainda. Que a gente ainda tem muito para descobrir. E eu acho isso muito bom.
What do you think?
It's good.
Yeah.
Like mushroom sushi.
Yeah. It's like mushroom sushi.
Do you talk to your mushrooms?
I do talk to them. I say nice things and, make sure that they feel comfortable.
I'm part of something which is great, but I am a tiny, 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 tiny part of this huge multiverse.
And the definition of insanity is to continue doing the same damn thing over and over and over again. And this is something that this culture has not done yet.
Fazer tipo the robot. Ela vai botar essa cena.